Whoop. All right. Hello, hello. All right. Hello, everybody. So my name is Sarah Villalva. I'm very excited to be part of this global grief conference. I know this is the first one ever. I can only imagine what next year's is going to be. I just want to thank everyone who has put this together. I know these past couple days, it's just been go, go, go. And there's been a lot of amazing information, wonderful speakers, and people who have been willing to just give of their time and their energy and resources to be able to provide solace and comfort and actionable steps on what someone can do, when they're experiencing a grievance of some kind, or if someone wants to be proactive. And so I'm grateful to be part of this conference. And so just thank you to everyone that has put this together. Appreciate all of you. I'm going to be honest. I thought for a while about what I was going to talk about. And I think something that was really standing out to me the most was just figuring out how to talk about expectations that we have on ourselves and the expectations that we place on other people when we're experiencing grief, when we're going through that. And that's something that I have felt that I really struggled with in the beginning when I was going through some very heavy losses over the last few years. And so something that I felt was going to be beneficial in just talking about that. I was trying to bring up slides into my presentation. So if anything, I might do some screen sharing. We're going to figure that out. We're going to figure that in the app, figure that out in the process. And so, just bear with me here. Definitely not the most tech savvy person, but I'm figuring it out. Always a learning experience. It's good stuff. But just from an expectation standpoint, I wanted to first just start off by saying, what exactly is an expectation? What do we know what the definition of an expectation is? Because I think before we even go through any kind of grieving experience, and this is just in any part of our life, we place certain kinds of expectations on ourselves, on the people around us, on certain scenarios, events, situations, whatever the case might be. And of course, there's some things that we just feel it's just said. Like when, for example, when we're in a romantic relationship with someone, there is this expectation that there should be mutual respect, there should not be any violence, things along those lines. Of course, when it comes to that, yes, those are, I feel, are some baseline expectations. So what I wanted to chat about today in regards to learning how to release expectations when grieving is are those things, the voices that we tend to hear that say, hey, no one cares about who we've lost, who's going to show us the support that we really need, where do I go from here, can I really do this? And we tend to place such grandiose expectations on ourselves about how we're supposed to grieve, how we're supposed to show up for ourselves, how we're supposed to show up for the people around us. And I think even more so, the expectations that we place on those people that we love. Um, so I think that is something that a lot of times, I know for myself, especially, I definitely had expectations placed on my loved ones as far as how they were going to support me. And just to give some background before I dive a little bit deeper into this, uh, 2019 was probably, I would say to date, probably one of the worst years of my life that I've ever had to experience. I'm a daddy's girl through and through, always have been, always will be. And I was blessed enough to have two fathers, my biological father as well as my second dad. I never liked saying stepdad because step just, it felt so far removed. And my second dad, he made up for the areas where my bio dad didn't quite know how to handle me or like know how to parent me, so to speak. Not a bad thing, not trying to not it's just they balance each other very well. It's like they were tag teaming and just making sure like, hey, I got Sarah covered here where you're not sure where to go, I got you here. And it was a really beautiful relationship, and they both got along very well, and I was just very blessed to have two dads in my life. And unfortunately in 2019, they actually back in 2018, they were both diagnosed with cancers. My father was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, which, for those of you who are not familiar with what that is, it is like cancer of the plasma cells. And my second dad, he was diagnosed with esophageal and stomach cancer. And so, needless to say, the latter part of 2018, with us hearing the diagnoses of both of these amazing, wonderful people in our lives, it was devastating and it was heartbreaking. And they both fought hard and gave it their all. And unfortunately, they they both passed in 2019. My father passed July of 2019, and then my second dad almost 3 months to the day in October. So 2019 was one of the roughest years that I've ever had to go through and experience. And talk about expectations. I remember amidst helping them through their cancer journeys, because I was not only the daughter, I became the caregiver, I became the assistant, I became the chef, I became the appointment maker. I had took on all of these roles and felt that there were so many expectations, not that they had placed that on me necessarily, but these expectations that I'd placed on myself, as far as, in order to be considered worthy, in order to be considered someone that is helping with progression, I have to take on all of these roles. And so I was placing so much of this expectation on myself to wear all of these hats simultaneously. And so, of course, when they both ended up passing away, I was absolutely distraught and heartbroken and devastated. And I felt like the biggest failure in the world, because the only narrative that was going through my head at that time was, wow, I not only failed being able to save my biological father, I had a second chance with my second dad, and I wasn't able to save him either. Now, of course, looking back and through the major healing I've done and through my own research, I'm very much aware that it is not up to us to be able to save people, because placing that kind of Superman, Superwoman cape on ourselves is a very dangerous state of mind to be in. Um, that's a whole other thing, of course. That can come from certain childhood programming and whatnot, as far as feeling like always having to be in this savior position, savior mentality, and whatnot. And that's something that I have had to constantly work on. But I had such deeply rooted expectations of myself on about how I was going to help both of them survive their cancer journeys, and that was going to be the highlight reel of my existence, that I was able to save my fathers. And knowing that none of that reality came to fruition, it was absolutely heartbreaking and devastating in so many ways. And so this is what I thought would just be so important to discuss and just share, just my perspective, my point of view around this, just in regards to just expectations, because it's something that I have found is absolutely challenging in just trying to have this understanding of, well, it's part of human nature to have expectations. There are some of these things that are just embedded, rooted within us. So, how do I really release that? And let me first start off by what the definition of expectation is. So, the definition of expectation is having a strong belief that something will happen or be the case in the future. And so these are things that we say, okay, just like when we get up in the morning, we might have certain expectations as far as, okay, today I have to get A, B, and C done. I expect my kids to make it to school on time. I expect, dinner, like dinner's probably going to be done by 6, 7 o'clock. Okay. And then, we have gym practice to go to, dance recitals. I have this debrief at work. And we have all these expectations that we place on ourselves throughout everyday life. And then when it comes to us grieving a loss, we try to use that same strategy and place it in this area of our life. And what I have found, at least what I've discovered for myself, is that we can't do that because we are already in this very vulnerable state of being where we don't know left from right, up from down, front from back. Our world can possibly feel unbalanced. We can suddenly feel like the rug's been pulled out from under us, and we're just trying to find harmony and balance again and have this understanding of, what does my life now look like moving forward? What does that even mean? And that is a question that I had a really hard time answering because, in full transparency, I had honestly felt like a part of me, pieces of me had died that year when both of my fathers died. I had no idea how I was going to survive losing them because it had truly felt like my world had just completely fallen apart. And it's been through these last few years of just, again, going through deep healing and having this understanding that the more these expectations that I had placed on myself, that I had to be a certain way, that I needed to do certain things, and I needed to show up a certain way for people, I realized that that was doing more harm than good because I was trying to, again, translate some of those same actions in everyday life to this moment in time of going through grief. And so I want to be able to ask those of you who are currently live, those of you who do end up watching this replay, and in the future, anyone that does end up wanting to email me in the future or join my group, I always ask myself these questions, and I'd like to ask this question to you, and that is, what expectation or expectations have you placed on yourself in regards to how you've been grieving? Or if you haven't experienced the loss of some kind, what expectation do you have of yourself? What expectations do you have on the people around you? How do you want them to show up? Do you even have an idea of what that looks like? And these questions are ones that I wish that I would have had some way of being able to ask myself at an earlier time, or I wish someone would have come to me and just said, "Hey, let's game plan. Let's try to be in a position, be as proactive as we can, in knowing that, of course, anything can change, and having that ability to adapt and be able to change, of course, is also just as important." But I wish I had had someone that would have just asked me those simple questions as far as, how can I show some kind of support? And I understand that that might change when the day comes. But if I at least have some kind of map, some kind of game plan, at least that's a place to start. Somewhere we can start, and then we can go from there versus not even knowing where to start, where to go, what to do. And I find that when I'm in, and again, being in full transparency, even with today, I was having a pretty rough morning. I woke up with this expectation of, okay, today is I'm going to be speaking at the Global Grief Conference, dropping some wisdom bombs, and all of these different visions and manifestations going on. And then for whatever reason, I could not stop thinking about my dad. And I was just in tears for most of the morning, and actually even up to, probably about 30, 40 minutes before even joining all of you. And yeah, the day was proving to be a little rough. And I've now been able to get myself in this place where I'm able to ask myself, okay, you know what? I'm not going to place myself in any kind of box. I'm not going to place any of these expectations on myself from the standpoint of like, well, I got to show up pretending to be this happy go lucky person. I got to show up in A, B, and C in this way. And I've learned that being very honest with my feelings and how I'm showing up in that moment has been one of the most liberating ways of allowing myself to embrace this journey. Because when you do lose someone, when you go through any kind of loss, whether it is someone who has passed away, whether you've gone through a divorce or a breakup, you've had a major change in your health, your life changes. You become a different person in some shape, way, or form. And I think it's human nature for us to keep trying to fit ourselves in this same box, but the person you were yesterday is not who you are today when you woke up this morning. Just like the person you're going to be tomorrow is not the same person as you were today. We are, God willing, we're lucky enough to wake up the next morning. We're different people because whatever experiences and events that we went through in that 24-hour period, it affected us in some way. And yet we try to place again ourselves in this same box, these same boxes, thinking, well, we got to stay here. And I believe a big part of that is because we as human beings, we don't like change. We don't like it when things get shaken up. And then I don't want to say that everyone is within that box, because there are some of us that constantly need change, some of us that enjoy the change and enjoy the roller coaster, but many of us, we have, even for those people though, there are certain things that those people are always looking forward to, where it's like, hey, I know when I wake up, this is always the first thing that I do. Or I know before I go to sleep, this is always something that I do. Or I know this is always something I do during dinner, or this is always something I do with my kids, whatever the case is. And so something that I learned is that we try to fit our expectations within the current reality of the situation. And while we hope these two things match up, they almost always often don't, especially when it comes to grief and loss. And a lot of times, this is what leads to those feelings of feeling discontent and unhappy. And I believe the reason for that is because when we're constantly living within the expectations that we place on ourselves or the expectations we place on others, we're living in the future. We're just living in the future. And not that it's a bad thing to live in the future, because I definitely don't want this to come across as me saying, don't ever think about the future. It's just some of us, we tend to either live in the past or we live in the future. And what I have come to find, just in my own personal experience, as well as with the people that I've worked with and the people that I am currently working with, is many of us, when we go through a heavy loss, we tend to live in the past because trying to live in the future is too scary. And even when we're living in the past, we're not allowing ourselves to embrace what's going on in the present moment. And of course, it's easier said than done, because when we go through a loss, it can feel like we have pounds of sand tied to our feet, our arms, and even just getting out of bed, even just wanting to do anything that we deem as productive can feel like it takes an entire army just to do. And so a lot of times we end up doing nothing. Or there are those of us that, and again, these act as distractions, where it's like, well, I have to constantly be doing something, because if I'm not constantly doing something, then those images, those thoughts are going to creep into my head, and I can't handle that. And I don't want to deal with that right now. And so a lot of us, we tend to live in the past, and we just keep going. We keep replaying that same movie, that same chapter of when we lost that person, when we were going through that divorce, that breakup, or maybe we're currently in the midst of that. And so many people get caught up in that trap because they had expectations of what that event was going to be. And of course, it's not a bad thing to have expectations. Again, it's part of our nature. It's human nature to have these expectations. You know, it helps us it helps us make goals, it helps us create deadlines for things that we want to do in our life. So again, I'm not saying that any of these things are bad. What I feel this comes down to is, how are we balancing some of these thoughts and these ideals, and what are the intentions behind them? So that's something that I have learned to do on an everyday basis. And at first, it took a lot of practice. I'm not going to sit here and say, yeah, it's that simple. It takes practice, just like with anything. It's like learning a new sport or learning a new instrument or doing anything that is new to us. The majority of us, it takes a little bit of time to practice that and then feel like we're in a place where it's like, okay, I got this. And even for those of us that practice it on a daily basis, even if you speak to any high performing athlete or performer, whatever the case is, they're still going to have their off days because guess what? They're human. They're human too. And I think that's something that we tend to forget is we tend to feel like we have to be these rocks, these pillars of support for everybody and even for ourselves. And that the minute we think someone sees through that, the minute we think, I feel like I'm crumbling, I feel like I'm not this rock, it's almost like we try to make up for it because we think I'm going to let everybody else down. I'm going to let myself down. And I can't do that. But I'm here to tell you, the more that we try to stay in that mindset, it can be very harmful and it can be detrimental because we're not acknowledging the fact that we're living, breathing beings that also need breaks and that have off days. And we're not meant to always be in go, go, go mode. We're not meant to always be the rock, the pillars. We place those types of expectations on ourselves. And this was something that when I came to this realization, I thought, okay, well, I've been living so much in the past, just reliving that moment of having to just take care of both of my dads and then those last moments with them in the hospital. And then I ended up going the other end of the spectrum where I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do about the future? Let's do this. And then I started living only in the future. I'm like, okay, well, I got to do A, B, and C. I got to be this. I got to do that. And so I ended up now went from living in the past to just living in the future the entire time. I'm like, okay, I don't care what's happening now. I need to figure out what I need to do tomorrow, what I need to do a year from now, what is my life going to look like? And I was getting so distracted and so lost in that moment that again, I was missing the most valuable aspect of this entire experience. And I know that might sound strange to say value, especially when it comes to going through a grief journey, because many of us, who wants to experience that? Who wants to feel like there's value to be found or a lesson to be found in losing someone or going through a breakup? And so again, that's definitely not my intention where I'm trying to go with that. I just realized for myself that because I was either constantly living in the past or constantly living in the future, I was not embracing the present moment and not allowing myself to just be, just be in my state of vulnerability, just allow myself to be. And because of that, I saw how angry I became. I became one of the most angry people that I had ever met. And I remember pushing so many people away. And it's because I assumed, I'd made these assumptions that everyone else was on the same page as me. I'm like, everyone else needs to be sad like me. Everyone else needs to be angry. Everyone else needs to be distraught and devastated. And why aren't they? Why don't they know how to support me? Why don't they know to just give me a hug or to just sit with me and cry with me or just to sit here in silence? And it's because I didn't know. I didn't know how to express that in that time. And that's why I say now, just being proactive in things of this nature by being able to talk more about what it could possibly feel like what kind of proactive measures could be taken as far as, okay, if and when things of this nature happen, what type of measures can we put into place? You know, Who can I have on speed dial? What is my natural MO? What do I normally tend to do? While again knowing that, hey, this may not be what I end up doing when I go through some type of grievance or loss. But hey, at least I have some kind of gauge because I know when I am normally very upset or angry or sad, my MO tends to be this. I normally tend to do this. I normally tend to isolate myself, or I normally tend to get snappy with people. And I look back and I think, you know what? I still was very much that way, except it was amplified with people. And so that was something that I found to be really helpful. And so what I just wanted to be able to share is a lot of times we tend to come from this place of, well, I expected you to do this and I wanted you to do this. And so now what I have found is I try to come from a place of inquiry, asking more questions, asking myself questions, and even asking the people around me questions. And when it comes to myself, the question I will ask is, okay, just like today, for example, when I shared that the morning started off a little rough, I said, okay, just because my morning is starting off a little rough, I'm not going to place this expectation on myself that the rest of the day is going to be absolutely horrible. Because maybe I'm feeling this way right now in this moment, but can this possibly change in the next 5 minutes, the next 10 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe in the next hour? Yes, there is a possibility this can change. So I'm going to allow myself to feel however I'm feeling and knowing that there's a possibility that this can change, but I'm not going to place that expectation in saying, because my morning started off this way, that means the rest of my day is going to be horrific and terrible. And I'm not going to be able to get out of this funk. And even just saying something as simple as that, it was very helpful. Now, throughout the day, I still had some moments. And just like I shared earlier, about 30, 40 minutes before even hopping on for my segment, I had other thoughts of my dad and I was getting teary and I was feeling some deep feelings. And I said, okay, you know what? That's all right. No matter how I show up, I'm going to allow that to be because you know what? This is me being human. And I'm not going to place that expectation on myself to have to show up for this and put on coach mode and pretend like the world is sunshine and rainbows. No, I want to be very honest and transparent. And that's why I wanted to share that with you all in the first place that, hey, even before coming on for my segment, I was feeling some things. And I said, you know what? No matter how I show up for this, I'm going to allow that to be so then I can show people that, hey, we don't always have to put on this Academy Award face where we're trying to be an actor or actress in our own lives. And I'm a firm believer that if we can show up for ourselves in that way, that is naturally going to emanate into the people around us. And that is something that I have noticed is even with my mom and with my other loved ones, they very well asked me, well, hey, you were feeling kind of funky this morning. You seem better. I know you had some moments. And I said, yeah. And that's just because I allowed myself to be in this place where I said, whatever happens today happens. And I'm not going to place that pressure on myself. I'm not going to place myself in that box of saying, this is how the rest of the day is going to be. And so when it comes to taking those kinds of actions, someone might say, well, how do I have a conversation like this with my loved ones? And something that I've been doing here recently is when I am having these moments, instead of hiding away in a corner, because again, my MO tends to be let's isolate and go hide in a corner and just be angry at everybody. I've been doing my best to get out of my comfort zone and say, okay, instead of doing that, I'm going to take one small action. And instead of hiding away in my closet, I'm going to go to my man and say, hey, I'm having a little bit of a rough time. I'm not 100% sure what kind of support I need right now, but I'm just letting you know this is what's going on. And so all I ask is for some grace and some flexibility and some patience in understanding that this is just what's happening with me right now. And if and when I can figure out how I want to be best supported, I will let you know. But just know this is what's going on. There's no need to worry. It's all right. I'm just allowing all of this to ride out. And I have found that to be very helpful over these last couple years instead of keeping everything bottled up, because I also tend to be that person. So instead of bottling everything up and having it blow up on the wrong person at the wrong place, wrong time, I've been able to get myself out of my comfort zone and take even just that small action of letting the person know, hey, this is how I'm feeling. And then if they ask in return, well, I would like to speak with you, or can I make dinner for you? Can I do this? If in that moment that's what feels right, then I'll say, sure, that'd be great. And then there are days where I'll say, well, I'm still not 100% sure what I need right now, but I will let you know. And just thank you for even asking. And sometimes just doing something as simple as that can make all the difference in the world. And so I would say a great question to ask yourself just in regards to these expectations is how do I feel right now in this moment? And that's one of the first questions that I ask when I wake up. I mean, other than doing my visualizations and my meditations, just with everything that was happening this morning, I said, okay, how am I feeling right now? And I was very honest with myself. I think that's a big key to this is not pretending, is not saying how you want to be feeling, but just being very honest with yourself and saying, okay, right now I'm feeling a little deflated and I'm feeling sad and I'm just feeling groggy. But even though that's how I'm feeling right now, I'm aware that that could change in 5 minutes. It may or it may not. Either way, I'm open to whatever the day brings. And I'm just going to take it 1 minute at a time and see where this goes. And so I like to ask myself even just that simple question about how do I feel right now in this moment? And hello, everybody. Yes, a helping hand is good. Yes, absolutely. I I definitely feel that with our loved ones, many of us, we tend to feel like that level of support isn't quite there, or those people who we thought were going to be those pillars of support, they find themselves not knowing what to do. And then we have people that come out of the woodworks, and someone who you didn't expect to provide that help all of a sudden ends up becoming one of your best friends or ends up becoming someone that you lean on for support. And it's just interesting to see how people respond when we go through a grievance of any kind. And so what I've just discovered is just trying to be honest and open with ourselves first and foremost is a big part of this. And just learning how to release those expectations and just being able to have that honest conversation with yourself as far as saying, okay, this is how I'm feeling, but I'm not going to place that expectation of the rest of the day has to go great. The rest of the day, I can't feel sad. I don't have the energy. I don't have the time. I can't be sad. I'm going to my niece's birthday party. I have to be present with my kids. And no, what I've found is I've been very honest with my family members, and I've just said, hey, right now, this is how I'm feeling. Could it change in 5 minutes? Yes. I'm not 100% sure though. So I'm just letting you know that way you're aware. And I would love support in this way, or I'm not sure how I need the support at the moment, but I will let you know. And I have found that to be very liberating, and it's been very freeing. And so I just wanted to just touch on that and share just my thoughts around expectations. And if for anyone who is on and who is live, if anyone has any questions or any thoughts of their own, or if anyone would like to share expectations that you've placed on yourself when you've gone through your own grieving journey, or if you're currently going through one, if you'd be open to sharing about certain expectations you placed on your loved ones and were they met, and what happened when your loved ones didn't meet your expectations, how did you react to that? And And what do you want to do now moving forward? And knowing that when we constantly live in this state of expectation, we're always living in the future versus just being one with the present moment. And so, if anyone has any questions or any thoughts, I would love to just hear from those of you who are currently live. And I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Is it Ada? Ada? Um, yes. I appreciate your input. And so, thank you for that. And thank you, Nathan. Yes, I'm a firm believer in just being very transparent. I try to be transparent in everything that I do. That's really my belief system where I come from, because unfortunately I've gone through multiple different types of therapies, healing modalities, and thank you, Ada. And I've always felt that there wasn't this authenticity. And so even with the people that I work with, I try to be very transparent and honest and open about my process, my experiences, and I just ask for that in return with the people that I work with, my family members, and anyone else. And so again, I'm just grateful and thankful for everyone here, for everyone that has been a speaker, who's given a workshop, done a workshop, has spoken, has shared their personal experiences about their journeys and how they've come to this place where they are now able to help others and bring others into or start on a path to healing and just have a better understanding of just their own bodies, their own minds, their hearts, making that connection with heart and mind. Because I think it's fair to say that when we are grieving, our mind and our heart are in two totally different places. Our mind is very logical, our heart's very emotional, and our mind tends to take over and tries to place everything in a very logistical manner. And I think it's fair to say that we all know that grief is very emotional in nature. And so no wonder why sometimes there's this disconnect. And so I just appreciate the opportunity to be able to share my story and share my experiences, and just thank you everybody for who has joining live, and I just appreciate you all. And so that is what I wanted to share. And for anyone that is curious and wants to just find out more information, and I do have a Facebook. I also have a private Facebook, a grief loss support group that is open to anyone, whether you've lost someone to a death, or you're going through a breakup or a divorce, or you've had a major change in health. I welcome everybody because I don't want anyone to get into this place where everyone's comparing their grievances. And so I have found that through the group, it's helpful to talk about different types of loss. So if anyone is interested, my group is called The Healing Journey Home on Facebook. And I also have a website where you can learn more about me and some of the programs that I offer. And that is at sarahthegriefcoach.com. And so just again, thank you. Thank you, Nathan, Tony, Deborah, everybody here who has spoken and just provided so much wisdom and knowledge and comfort and solace and inspiration, encouragement, and everything. And so thank you guys. Appreciate you all, and definitely look forward to the next one next year. That'll be great. All right, everybody. Well, I'm going to say my goodbyes and hopefully see you all next year. Bye.